I just want to wrap up chapter 7, 6, and 7, and then we'll meet up again tomorrow. We'll continue with the book review tomorrow because it's almost time. I need to go sleep. I need to go catch some sleep. Okay, so let's move straight to chapter 6. Okay, the topic. Sorry, now just bear with me now. Oops. Okay, we've talked about upholding the baby girl lifestyle. That's where she was just trying to say she just wanted to be a baby girl. But now, chapter 6 is America in the pipeline. So now in chapter 6, you know, she said that anyone that asked her about her marriage, she would just tell them one side of the story, that is not really correct for anyone that is ready to listen. So if you're ready to, as long as you open your ears to say you want to listen to her, she will give you the story that she wants to give you, which is one-sided, from her own part. And she will always tell people that marriage is not nice to her and everything. So she said that one of her friends who was living in United Kingdom asked her if she would love to explore other countries, because the suffering was too much in Nigeria. So the friend was like, "Oh, would you like to try UK, Canada, or America?" Due to the better economic and job opportunities that they offered. And then she was like, "Of course." Because the advice sounded very good to her. Of course, everyone wants greener pastures. So she jumped on it, and then she she told her family about the plans for her to move out of the country, but they still had a lot of debts. Like she still had lots and lots and lots of debt because she had borrowed money from most of her friends around her, so a lot of people were already running away from her. And but then she managed to gather a lot of money from where she could gather, and then she sent the agents that would process the American visa for them. But to cut the long story short, the American visa thing was a scam. And then they tried to later, the story is long, yeah. So, but to cut the long story short, the embassy denied them American visa, and then she cried and cried, and it was as if, oh, the end has come. Like the end has come and everything and everything. So out of frustration, she just continued living life, and I think then she started living with her mom, her own parents, because they don't have money to afford housing. So they were living with our own parents, and at some point they had to move into our own husband's family place, because the husband family were not happy that why would you go to live in your own parents' house when you're already married to our son, and then you now took our son to go and live under the roof of your own parents. If you don't have where to live, why don't you come to us and then we give you a shelter? So she wrote in her book that at some point her father-in-law had to rent an apartment for them, but obviously with his own terms. So she said the husband was always like, yielding to whatever she wanted, everything, anything. Like, it doesn't really like counter her. He doesn't really argue with her. Like, when once she say, "Oh, this is what I want," he just like allows her to have her way because she always will want to have her way all the time. So now she has been living with her in-laws, and then at some point she got tired of living with them, and she wanted her own space. She told the in-laws about everything, and then her father-in-law paid for an apartment, for them. So her father-in-law is actually very nice. Like it's really nice. Like these people were living with you. Now the wife is complaining and nagging, and then he gave them money to get another apartment, but close to where it was living. So she said that she tried to do some jobs, for she tried to cook for offices, but her father-in-law was against it because there was a time she got a contract for a bank and an oil company, which happened to be where the father-in-law was working, and then he was very embarrassed, seeing her doing it, so she had to, stop it. And don't forget that, they had already sold all their properties because they were moving from house to house. Like it's either Prudence and her husband are living um with our own parents, or they're living in a father-in-law's house. So they had no property. So they were just like empty. So when the father-in-law got an apartment for them, they didn't have furniture, they didn't have anything. The house was just very bare. There was no bed. So a baby girl thoughts resurfaced again, and she felt like she couldn't sleep on the floor. And the thought built up a lot of anger in her, and she was already looking for a way out of the marriage. As she wrote in her book, and I quote, so she said that the marriage was very unbearable for her because she didn't expect the marriage to turn out the way it was, and the thought of divorce filled her heart and in her mind. Like after all, we just have a son, so but she just said that to herself just to calm herself down. That yeah, we have a son anyway. But she became a very quarrelsome woman, and because she was really close to the husband's family, like living close to where they were, so she started getting some shades of disrespect from the father-in-law's family, like her husband's family, from his sisters and brothers. But she said she couldn't blame them because her actions, had reduced her to nothing in their eyes. So, and she said that it was a situation that happened one day, and she transferred all the aggression of what was going on. I don't know what was going on with her, but she transferred all the aggression on her husband's sister, and she went as far as slapping the other sister on the face. Prudence, this your story is pathetic. Why will you slap your husband's sister? I don't know. Okay. She wrote, of course I apologize. So she said she did apologize anyway after giving the poor innocent girl a dirty slap. She now apologized. And then she said life just, has been happening to her, in different shades and everything. And she said even though we had not received Christ, obviously, they were just religious people. They were doing things, like the norms. They were praying. They would only pray when there was challenge, but they would not yield to the Spirit of God. They were just marking the church attendance register every Sunday service, but they didn't really have any godly counsel in them. Then she said, we didn't even have married friends. I was still friends. So she was still friends with some girls from my university days. And the university days definitely. I don't if you watched the book review for part 1 and 2. Our friends were really bad. Like they were into drugs, they were into lesbianism, they were into so many rubbish. I'll call all those things rubbish because to me they're too bad. My uni days, I was just focused on reading and reading. Medical students, you read like mad. What concern you with living this kind of life? You just feel. So, well, So she lived all those kind of lives, and she wrote in a book that to make things worse for herself, she started to talk to her ex-boyfriend. She was married though, but she was talking to her ex-boyfriend. And her ex-boyfriend started rubbing it on her that, you see, if you had gotten married to me, life will not be this hard for you, blah 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 blah, you know. And yeah, that was very bad for her. Like, burning those old bridges is always the best. Like, you just never find the ashes. Like, she was trying to say that you need to burn all the old bridges. Like, this a book is about, will I say, reborn. Like, this is my past life. I wanted to learn from it. I don't want you to, don't judge me. Yes, I'm not judging you, but your past life is really bad. It's okay. That's your past life. But now that the marriage is shaking, I don't know. Are you sure that the man did not, your husband really tried? Because it's a lot. Like, okay, part 7 says things fall apart. So she said that one day there was a real big fight between she and her husband, and she was really mad at him. They were arguing on just school runs, like who will take their son to school, and blah 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 blah. And then the, they were raining abuses on each other, and then she had to pick up the phone and call her husband's father, and told her husband's father that he should come and carry his son before she kills him. Well, she wrote in her book that um, he almost eats me. So maybe the man almost raised his hands on her, and they made her to call the dad and say, "Dad, come and take your son before I." But now, if a man almost eats you, is that enough? I don't know. Like, will you now feel so strong? Like, if a man wants to eat a woman, you're supposed to run away, and you still stay there, and you don't have the guts to still call the dad to say you don't know. Like, well, I'm just reading the book anyway. Okay. So she said after she made a call to her father-in-law, all hell broke loose, and everyone had something to say about her. They blamed her, for being a bad wife to her husband, for not being calm, for not being patient. They even blamed her for being the reason why the husband was not working. And then they scolded her. The parents tried to restore the marriages together again, you know. But she wrote that she remained very stubborn and angry, and she was just plainly tired of being with someone who wasn't, adding value to her life, because in her own thoughts, I'm with this person and I'm not moving forward. I just feel like I'm still in my old shackles. Like, I'm even worse than I was before as a single. That's the most painful thing. When you are married, you know, marriage brings blessings. So you're not married and then you are living worse than you're single. That's really bad. So she felt like, life is really, really terrible and all that. There was a lot of family drama, arguments with her husband here and there. But eventually, she had to speak to herself, and then she apologized to her husband and to her in laws. And then she said that the Proverbs 31 woman has been a great example to follow to her. Her pastor came in and they kept on, talking to her. They didn't give up on her and all that. So that helped her to change a bit. Thank God for the pastor. So she said and advised that when challenges come, the word of God shines on our path and helps us to overcome. However, because I lacked the word of God, I fell in so many places. So that's just to say, oh, you should stand on the word of God. in all situations anyway. So if you're not standing on the word of God, you just be falling, you just be doing anyhow, which is true. She said she was very impatient with her husband. That she can't emphasize that, overemphasize the word impatient. She's very impatient. And she said that if she was patient, that she's sure that she would have calmed down with him and she would not expect billions to flow in their first year of marriage, and that she was only concerned about the pleasures and enjoyments, of marriage, but she didn't want to suffer to she didn't want to like help or support her husband to grow with it and all that. And then she went into marriage unprepared because she went with an ulterior motive. She married for money, thinking that the husband was rich, but unfortunately, he was not rich. She got married for a wrong reason. But she said she's grateful to Jesus, for giving her another chance to write a story. So, let me just scroll down. Okay, I think I've already finished this book. So, with what I've read so, but I don't want to jump and say some things. Really, where she had to cheat on her husband with a lady. Like, I don't know. I'm gonna get there anyway. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. If I've not passed it. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here, guys, and I'll continue the next chapters tomorrow. So I think in a few days we'll just finish the whole book. Bye bye, guys. Please do like and subscribe to my channel.